Hi, I'm Annie. Today I'm going to share some thoughts on clarity, mostly from an ENFP perspective. I also have some observations on gaining clarity that come from my work with coaching clients who are not necessarily ENFPs, but maybe other types. If you'd like to book a video chat session with me, you can find a link to do so in the description. Finding clarity and choosing a specific path forward is one of my biggest struggles. As an ENFP glass lizard, there is a constant tension between NE at the top, wanting to gather conceptual possibilities, and SI at the bottom, scrambling to organize it all and narrow down. In the last year, I've taken on some coaching clients. In typical ENFP fashion, it just kind of happened. Now I'm intentionally pursuing coaching, improving my coaching skills, and attempting to clarify my vision of how coaching fits into my future and how it's going to interact with all of my other interests. And I do have many other pursuits, also in typical ENFP fashion. I've been a massage therapist for 16 years, so I have to consider how coaching fits in with that obligation. I also have an online handmade boutique, which is really important to me, but it takes a lot of time and energy. Music making is also really important to me, but unfortunately that has fallen by the wayside. I'm just really busy completing this intensive coach training program this year. But I do expect in 2022 more time and space will open up for music making. Fitness and overall health is also really important and in the mix. But there's no lack of clarity on that one. That's foundational. Fitness comes first because it makes all other pursuits more effective. In trying to incorporate coaching into my life, the main struggle is deciding on an area of focus, a target audience, and how I want to interact and communicate with that audience. My area of focus is pretty clear. I want to help people leverage self-discipline and habits to raise consciousness and live life intentionally. What we do every day is how we live our lives. Our lives are made up of a million tiny habits and routines that we do every day. So if you dial in those routines, then that allows you to achieve what you're trying to achieve overall in your life. I love working with people in the objective personality community because they're generally already in a growth mindset and they're ready to do the work required to improve themselves. I'm also super familiar with SI fourth issues, and I've had a lot of conversations with younger ENFPs who are honestly just trying to get their shit together. SI can really help with that because SI is another foundation that can help you achieve everything else that you're trying to achieve. As I mentioned, I've been a massage therapist for 16 years, so offering coaching to clients under the umbrella of overall health and wellness makes a whole lot of sense. And I am already doing that with massage clients who are interested in coaching and interested in exploring, overall health and wellness and, body-mind integration. So for a long time, there was an overwhelming and uncomfortable lack of clarity surrounding all of this, trying to make all of this work and bring it all together, pulling in this additional coaching piece into my life when I'm already doing so many other things. And one of the hardest things for me to do, lead consume, lead NE, is to narrow down and choose a specific path forward. It's one of the hardest things in the world for me to do. But it's starting to look clearer and clearer, and I'd like to share the things that I did to sort of arrive at that clarity or, gain a little bit more clarity over time. So I spend a lot of time allowing the conceptual possibilities to just rattle around in my head and create a lot of chaos and a lot of noise. And that really isn't helpful. What finally helped to clarify is going back to SI, which shouldn't be a surprise. If you follow objective personality, you know that whatever the dilemma for the lead NE, the answer is often SI. It's always a good bet if you're having any kind of struggle to check in with SI, see what SI is doing. How can you leverage SI to help sort yourself out? So all that noise, ambivalence, wild conceptualizing, endless possibilities, which just rattling around in my head and really draining my energy, and I wasn't getting anywhere. So NE tends to keep asserting itself and rushing in to save the day, NE with the big red cape on, but really it just brings a lot of chaos. I love NE. It's really useful when it's in its place. I love thinking outside of the box, creative problem solving, the sudden epiphanies that seem to be more common in lead intuitives. But I also find that NE needs to be put in its place sometimes, and a healthy dose of SI is necessary in order to execute some of those excellent, brilliant ideas in reality. So what really helped accelerate my clarity is pulling up a spreadsheet on my computer and digging into the SI of the situation. So all that chaotic noise in my head, I get it out of my head onto a piece of paper and look at it concretely. Start moving it around and actually organizing it physically in the physical world. I like digital, but you can do this with a pen and a paper, or, note cards are great because you can write separate ideas on cards and actually physically move them around. I like to use a personal database because I have an online handmade business. I've got my massage therapy business and then, coaching responsibilities. It helps to use a database to organize all that. So I have a lot of different lists, a lot of different workspaces where I can brainstorm and work out all these ideas, move specific tasks to, the master to-do list so I can lay out the concrete action steps that I'm going to take and prioritize them. And there are a lot of apps you can use for this. Trello is really basic and there's a free version. A lot of these apps have, free versions or trial versions, so you can try them out and see if it's going to work for you. Airtable, Miro, Aoa, there are a lot of them. There's a lot of competition for this type of, personal database app. And a lot of these are also designed for collaboration too. So you can have a whole bunch of team members using the same app and you can, communicate and brainstorm together separately. That doesn't really apply to me. I'm not much of a collaborator, so I use this just for myself. Right now I'm using Aoa. I believe there is a free version. I'm using the paid version with all the bells and whistles. So that has a mind mapping tool where you can actually, create a digital mind map so you can, map out all that chaos in your head and move things around and look at it visually so you kind of have a clear picture of what this tangle of thought specifically is doing. You get it outside of yourself and look at it on a piece of paper. There are also whiteboards where you can jot down notes and, physically move things around to, prioritize and see what you're looking at. I use lists a lot, and that allows me to, categorize and move things around in a really tactile way. And that just helps me to make all these concepts physical so that I can look at them and poke them with a stick and move them around and, figure out what's really important, what's really valuable, what is really going to help me achieve my goals in actual reality. It's amazing how much clarity you can get from a simple pros and cons list. If you're stuck, get out a piece of paper and start writing it down. And any is a powerful tool that I use for brainstorming and, generating ideas for future forward movement, but I have to put it in its proper place so that it works for me and doesn't work against me. When it's generating too many ideas, too many possibilities, that's when it starts to work against me. I need to take a minute and stop and organize those ideas in the physical so I can really see what's going on. I start my day with NE. I allow my NE to do what it wants to do because it feels good and that's where brilliant ideas come from. So I exercise NE on my morning runs. I listen to music while I'm running that facilitates a kind of a soft focus, usually music with no lyrics, just sort of like something trancy to just get my, creative mental juices going. And I let my NE run off leash. To be clear, I would never let my dog off leash in a public area where leash laws are in effect, because that would be disrespectful to my neighbors. But letting NE off leash for morning runs is awesome. So I come back from my run, I make my third Americano of the morning, and I get straight to my computer and open up my database before any of those great ideas slip away, and I start jotting them down and organizing them, rearranging them to see what I've come up with. And then I can prioritize and choose action steps for today, tomorrow, this week, this month, future, a year. Just get all those valuable nuggets of inspiration and brilliance from the NE and capture it before it gets lost. I also let NE run loose in my dreams at night. My dreams reveal new ways of understanding, and I also process and integrate information and feelings at night while I'm sleeping. I've noticed my natural tendency to do this, to kind of use my dreams as a tool, and I leaned into that even more. So I sort of noticed a natural tendency, and then I started paying attention to my dreams, listening to them, allowing them to communicate with me. And I do get a lot of valuable insights from my dreams. So first thing in the morning when I wake up, I spend some time in my digital bullet journal, just sort of reviewing my dreams and sort of sifting through them to see if there's any valuable insights from the dream world that I can bring into my waking life. And I do a little bit of light SI, just like organizing those ideas, sort of roughly outlining what's on the agenda for the day. And I also have a coach. I have a couple of coaches. And I almost always come out of a coaching session with a lot more clarity just by simply telling someone else what's going on. So FI and personal values is also really important with clarity. And that's really true for anyone, but if you have FI at the bottom, it can be, a little bit harder, a little bit more tricky to access your personal values and make sure that they're in alignment with your overall forward motion. So having masculine FI second, awareness of my personal values is pretty natural. That's usually not an issue for me. Taking actions and building a life that is in line with those values can be trickier just because that's how life is. I think it's like that for a lot of people. So sometimes I'm doing things because I think they'll work. This is how you're supposed to do it. They say this should work, but then I might notice I'm not doing things that are in alignment with my values. This isn't so much of an issue as I get older, but I am thinking back to, times in my earlier life when I was younger, in my 20s. Sometimes I was doing things a certain way because I thought that's how it works, but sometimes I was overriding my own values. I was not acting in alignment with my values, and ultimately that just it's not a good recipe for contentment. It's just uncomfortable to live a life that is not in alignment with values. So in working with my clients, I find that it helps them to talk it out, just like it helps me when I talk it out with my coach. And I also find it helps when I listen intuitively and I reflect back to the client what I'm hearing. So they might not be aware of their values, but they're communicating those values. And if you listen very carefully, you can hear what someone's values are while they're talking to you, and you can reflect that back to them. And it's just as simple as, I'm hearing that you value X, Y, Z. How does that resonate with you? And sometimes it really blows their mind. Oh my God, how can you see my values when I wasn't even aware of them myself? But there's no magic to it. It's just listening. People are communicating their values all the time. You just have to pay attention, and all the information is there. So those are my thoughts on gaining clarity right now. Organize the noise inside your head in the physical, get it out of your head, organize it physically, understand and honor your values, and create an action plan that is in alignment with those values and that will also work in reality. So that's helpful, but it's still sometimes a tall order because life is complicated and sometimes it's hard to get all those things to line up. But I feel like you're at least one step closer. You're at least a little bit more likely to gain that clarity if you can do those things. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's still one of the trickiest things that I deal with in my life, is just constantly getting a little muddled, getting a little bit too OE, just trying to clarify and narrow it down a little bit. So that's all for now. Happy November.